Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Have you ever wondered how companies make sure that only the right people can access their systems, applications, and sensitive data? In today's tutorial, we're diving into one of the most important topics in cybersecurity, identity and access management, or IAM. As organizations move to the cloud and employees work from anywhere, identity has become the new security perimeter. That's why understanding IAM is essential for every IT professional, cybersecurity analyst, and system administrator. In this lesson, you'll learn what Identity and Access Management, IAM, is and why it's a critical part of modern cybersecurity. The core IAM formula, identification, authentication, and authorization. The AAA Framework, authentication, authorization, and accounting, and how organizations use it to secure and monitor access to their resources. Real-world examples of how IAM protects users, applications, and data in enterprise environments. So whether you're just starting your cybersecurity journey or looking to strengthen your security fundamentals, this lesson is for you. Let's get started. 1. Introduction: the new security perimeter. For many years, organizations protected their data and systems by securing the network perimeter. Firewalls, VPNs, intrusion prevention systems, and secure office networks were considered the primary line of defense. But the world has changed. Today, employees work from anywhere, applications are hosted in the cloud, users access company resources from personal devices, and critical data is spread across multiple platforms and services. As a result, the traditional security perimeter has disappeared. But what was a traditional security perimeter? In the past, cybersecurity was built around a simple assumption. Everything inside the corporate network was trusted, and everything outside was untrusted. Organizations focused heavily on protecting the edge of their networks. Security teams deployed firewalls, VPN gateways, network access controls, proxy servers, intrusion detection systems. As long as users were inside the company network, they were often granted broad access to systems and data. This model worked well when employees worked from the office, applications were hosted in company data centers, devices were managed centrally, business operations were conducted primarily on-site. But why does a traditional perimeter no longer work? Today's IT environment looks completely different. Organizations now rely on cloud services such as Microsoft 365 and Salesforce, remote and hybrid work, mobile devices, third-party vendors, SaaS applications, internet-connected business systems. Users can access company resources from home, hotels, airports, customer locations, personal devices. At the same time, attackers no longer need to break through a firewall. Instead, they often target user identities, stolen credentials, cloud accounts, misconfigured applications, unmanaged devices. The reality is simple. The network is no longer the primary security boundary. So, what is the new security perimeter? Today, identity has become the new security perimeter. Instead of asking, is this user inside the network? Organizations now ask, can we verify this identity, device, and access request? Every login attempt must be validated regardless of where the user is located. This is why technologies such as multi-factor authentication, MFA, single sign-on, SSO, conditional access, identity protection, have become critical cybersecurity controls. If an attacker steals a user's credentials, they may gain access without ever touching the company network. That's why protecting identities have become one of the highest priorities for modern security teams. Let's take a real-world example. Imagine an employee working from home. In the traditional model, the employee connects through a VPN. Once connected, they may gain broad network access. In the new model, the organization verifies the user's identity using MFA, the device compliance status, the sign-in risk level, the sensitivity of the requested application, whether additional approval is required. Only then is access granted. This approach dramatically reduces the risk of unauthorized access. Now, let's define the identity and access management, Identity and Access Management, IAM, is a framework of business processes, policies, and technologies that ensures the right individuals access the right resources at the right times for the right reasons. It manages user identities, authentication, authorization, and access control to protect organizational systems and data. Let's take example. An employee wants to access Microsoft 365. IAM verifies their identity using a username, password, and multi-factor authentication. If the user belongs to the HR department, IAM grants access to HR applications but blocks access to finance systems. This ensures users can only access resources required for their job roles. 2. The core formula of IAM. The core formula explains how a user gains entry. It starts with identification, which is a process of claiming an identity to a system. It answers a question, who are you? Examples like entering your username, user ID, email address, or account number. Identification alone carries zero security proof. Anyone can type in your email address. That's why step 2 is required. Then we move to authentication, which is the process of verifying that the claimed identity is genuine. It answers a question, can you prove it's really you? Examples like entering a password, scanning a fingerprint, approving a push notification on your phone, MFA, or using a hardware token, FIDO2 key. Authentication is. Then we move to the authorization, which is the process of determining what actions an authenticated user is permitted to perform. It answers the question, what are you allowed to do? Examples, checking role-based access control, RBAC, rules to see if a user can read a file, edit a database, or delete a server. Let's make this easier to understand with a simple airport analogy. Imagine you're at an airport preparing to board a flight. First, you walk up to the check-in counter and tell the airline agent, "Hi, I'm John Smith." At this point, you're simply claiming an identity. This step is called identification. Next, the agent asks for your passport or government-issued ID. They compare your photo and details to verify that you really are John Smith. This process of proving your identity is called authentication. Finally, once your identity has been verified, you're issued a boarding pass. The boarding pass allows you to access specific areas and board a particular flight. However, it doesn't give you permission to enter restricted areas, access a control tower, or fly the aircraft. This step is called authorization. While the core formula explains how a user gains entry, cybersecurity engineers rely on a classic security framework to design and audit these systems. The AAA Framework. AAA stands for Authentication, Authorization, and Accounting, where authentication means who are you, and authorization means what are you allowed to do, and accounting means what did you do. Let's start with the authentication. As we saw in the previous topic, the authentication is verifying credentials using one or more authentication factors. Or something you know, password, PIN, or something you have, smartphone, MFA app, security key. Something you are, biometrics, fingerprint, face ID. And when we merge two or more factors, it's called multi-factor authentication, or MFA. So, when you log into your email using only a username and password, you're using single-factor authentication, SFA, because access is verified with just one factor. However, if after entering your password you also need to enter a code sent to your mobile phone or approve a notification on an Authenticate app, you're using multi-factor authentication. Now let's take a look to authorization. Authorization is a process of determining what an authenticated user is allowed to access or perform. It applies permissions and roles to control access to systems, applications, and data. Example of that. After logging in, an HR employee can access HR records but cannot access finance data, and the finance employee can access finance data but not HR data. Before moving on, it's important to mention the principle of least privilege, a fundamental concept in cybersecurity that we'll cover in more detail later in this course. In simple terms, the principle of least privilege means giving users only the minimum permissions they need to perform their job responsibilities, nothing more and nothing less. By limiting access to only what's necessary, organizations reduce security risks, prevent unauthorized actions, and minimize the potential impact of compromised accounts. Now, Let's move to last A in the AAA framework, which is accounting. Accounting is a crucial third pillar that many beginners forget. It tracks, logs, and records what users actually do once they gain access. What it tracks: who logged in, from what IP address, at what time, and what files or systems they modified. So, why does the accounting matters? If a breach occurs, accounting provides the audit trail, in other words, logs, that are required for incident response, forensic analysis, and legal compliance. Without accounting, you cannot prove what an attacker or rogue employee did inside your environment. Now that you understand the theoretical backbone of IAM, the core formula, and the AAA framework, we are ready to move from theory to reality. In the next lesson, we are going to look at how traditional legacy Active Directory compares to modern cloud identity in Microsoft Entra ID before spinning up our free developer sandbox environment. See you in the next lesson. Finally, don't forget to subscribe for more IT and cybersecurity courses.